Well, thank you. First of all, thanks for your faithfulness in keeping momentum together. Thank you for reaching out and inviting me to actually share some updates and maybe some of the learnings that are going on. But yeah, it's been a ride for sure. It's for those that don't know, we kind of put our chin up over our skis a little bit, my wife and I, and we bought a facility, took all the money that we had in the world, borrowed a lot more, and bought a really beautiful, beautiful place in Costa Rica to be able to run studies. And we paid for those studies, and they got cut a little short, not too short, but a little short when COVID hit and the country shut down. So Costa Rica was not accepting visitors for effectively a little over 10 months. And so it made it really hard to make a monster mortgage payment because we bought a very beautiful place thinking that this was it. So we paid about 3.9 million for it, and I had to give the keys back. So I gave the keys back, and they sold it for $7.1 million to somebody else who's tearing it down and turning it into a monster a villa, which is great. It's a testament to my good sensibilities about real estate, and a terrible testament to whatever it is when you get out there and you do things. So we got back in 2020, and it was a little hard to get excited about being all in for everybody when we just kind of got beat up pretty bad. So we moved in 2021. We moved out here to Boise, Idaho, and God has just been super gracious and restorative, which is my favorite character, I think, of the Lord, is that he restores that which he has a hand in taking. And I think that the Lord really had a hand in a lot of what was happening for us. I think we needed to grow. I think I needed to grow, and I needed to be okay with some things. So it is like, I feel like I have gone through like a caterpillar becoming something else. Like I feel like I turned into mush for a while. And then yesterday I shaved my beard off. So for any of you that have known me for 10 years, I've had a beard. And today, and for today only, I do not have a beard. But tomorrow I'll start having one again. And I hope that we'll grow it back. But my goal in today's share with you guys is just to give you a couple of key points and then just answer any questions if there are any. But we did go back to starting to working with people, and I started sticking to more difficult cases, mostly because they asked, and I felt like the Lord was telling me to say yes. And so, pretty wild times, but I think I finished, I think last Thursday was my 185th consecutive or near consecutive Q&A for Chris Wark in a private group I do on Thursday nights, where it's sort of a stump the answer, man. And this last year, many times we would go 3.5 or 4 hours of I'd answer every question that could come along. And it just felt like a privilege to be able to serve, but also to stay connected and give me a chance to sort of reorient. And we did. And I'm reminded of the things that separate thrivers from those who are struggling to survive. And so many of you may already have all of this and just know it in your bones. And sometimes we just need to hear things again to remember where to prioritize things. And so today is just me sharing a couple of those things. We've had some really big wins, no real losses from cancer. I lost somebody 2 weeks ago, or well, early last week, an older gentleman. He died of complications related to being in the hospital and hospital treatment, but it wasn't his cancer that took him. But other than that, we've been blessed that we've had some, again, big wins. Several of these highly documented, meaning that they had surgery pathology reports, scans before, and then now scans after, working for a number of months together. And that feels really good to have good, solid cases that people can stand up and feel good about talking about without feeling like they're going to get attacked for some frailty in their storyline, right? Because people, aren't always brave because like, well, I never got, an original whatever. I didn't have a biopsy, or I didn't have this, whatever. So we've got a couple of those. Um, Gosh, man, I'm just so reminded that mental attitude has, it doesn't matter how much we want it for somebody, they have to want it uh, more than we want it for them. And if we find ourselves working with someone where we want it more for them than they're ready to do for themselves because they're just kind of locked up in fear or a little bit of hopelessness or something, it's just a horrible place to be as a practitioner. But go where God calls you to be, and that's about the best that you can do. Um, Another sort of key point was pain management, was just remembering how important when somebody, if their journey does have them in a state of suffering, is to work, with traditional providers to really look at smart pain management options, because pain can take even the strongest person and just erode away at their resilience. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the Lord and comfort and the Holy Spirit being our comforter, is that even in the most immense amount of pain, our true sin nature kind of reveals its way out a little bit. I think, that's something that as we love on people who have a diagnosis, and we're helping them to find, a better way through that journey as an advocate or as a coach or as a practitioner, is just to remember in the back of your mind, it's like the human person and body is resilient. But boy, pain has a way of just shortening that resilience down. And then I've been reminded that cancer is not a single causation, but rather it's multifactorial, that there's just a lot of things happening at the same time. And more, it seems like there's a strong, social component, an emotional component, and then the physicals between mold exposure or viral histories of history of viral infections and things like that are just, they're pretty profound. And I think that they're very deserving. So this last year, we've been real fortunate that we've been paying close attention. And in a couple of cases, I had other practitioners that were on that person's team that we were able to run tests and look at things and run some medications. And it really seemed to be game changers. And so no one particularly stands out, because there's one that had a aflatoxin. Somebody was exposed to black mold. And so I think that was real influential in her breast cancer diagnosis. But she also at the same time had developed a staph infection that was hanging around for a bit, and some things. So you have a little bit of everything, not just one thing. And then I think when we're working with people, we have to sometimes listen with our hearts and not with our ears, because sometimes they're saying things because they think they're supposed to say them, or because they're putting a stiff upper lip on, or they're doing their level best, but unfortunately they're not being honest with themselves nor with us. And that's mostly around isolation and connection. Is what we've really noticed, is that people will say, oh no, my spouse, I'm the most loving spouse. And then you dig deep and you start hearing about how the spouse can't take any time off of work for them, and they eat separate types of food. And because of the strange, work schedule that the spouse is keeping, that there's no real social time with each other. There's no date nights, there's no date time. It's like, well, how exactly do you feel loved? Like, how do you feel so cared for by your spouse then? If I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, what's the act of love, the action, or the words? What was the thing that worked for you when that person's not even around? So sometimes we have to hear what someone's saying, but maybe be ready to listen, in a way that goes deeper and wider. And when we do, we can help interrupt isolation. Because if somebody isolates themselves, like most people with a diagnosis do, they're afraid. They don't want to talk about it with people who aren't interested in their approach, and or they're fearful that they're making a bad decision, or they're honestly just overwhelmed. Whichever those are, is that we just still have to remember that they want to kind of move themselves away from connection, and we want to bring them back to connection. If we want to leverage, the evidence to show. And I think the final one would be just that there's a monumental difference between I'm going to kick cancer's ass, that kind of attitude, like I have a lot of living I still want to do, cancer's not going to have anything over me, that's an attitude, versus a slightly different attitude, which is maybe God's let me have cancer so that I can go through this and inspire others. Or maybe this is a tap on the shoulder that I need to go reset some boundaries and start taking better care of myself, and that I need to expect better from other people, or I need to forgive other people, or I need to make room for other people. But they're always talking about, that's the second group, is always talking about interconnectedness into some form of family or band or tribe or community. And when we follow those people through time, according to these mnemonic studies, we see that those people, that the second group I described, they outlive the other group by 4 to 10 times longer in fully conventional settings. So just a mental attitude changes our biochemistry. It changes our resilience. It also opens us up to be able to work with more people and to be comfortable with having more communication, to be able to maybe pause somebody on your team that was very useful in the beginning, but might not be super useful right now because their area of expertise may not be totally appropriate in this minute, or their passions or bias or whatever it is. So that's really kind of, I wanted to be as succinct as I could. I think I've been known to be verbose and go on, but I wanted to give to you just kind of those nuggets, as they were, which was make sure that the person you're working with has a will and desire to live that is greater than your will and desire for them to live. The second is, be on guard for pain management when you can, if you can help, support the pursuit of underlying diseases. That's super useful, and helping somebody to stay in a place of receiving social support and connectedness, and find that mental attitude of focus on where you're going. And if where you're going is just self-serving, it's probably not going to turn out so good. So if they can focus, if you can help them to focus on concepts like, hey, if time and money weren't a concern, what would you do? Who would you help? Who would you do things with? If you could make change, what change would you make? If someone's living and they can see themselves alive in the future, and they can see themselves being of value and contributing, that's the goal. That's the place where the body's chemistry seems to be the best. And so those are my points. Super sweet and on target. We're way past 200 patients. We're somewhere hovering around the 80% success rate, which is monumental by comparison to anything anybody else has ever done. The 20% that we couldn't do, most of them were self-walkaways. They just couldn't finish, a 12-week commitment, or they just couldn't take action because they were locked up in anger, bitterness, or fear. So the majority has really we've been blessed with wins, but it's also a big world and a lot of different types of cancer. So we're still really humble and cautious.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Theo. First, can you define what you mean by success, 80% success?
Sorry, yeah, thank you. That's a really good question. And I think that we need to always be asking stuff like that for clarification. So we defined in the studies, we had endpoints, and our success would be in one group was in 21 days or less, can we, or somewhere within a 30-day window, but with 21 days with us, can we demonstrate a change in cancer markers, tumor size, something along those lines. And so we were able to show reduction in CA markers, tumor size often. Our best one was a gal who had a 42% reduction in metastatic disease to liver in a 23-day window. Image to image was 23 days apart. And then for the other group that did not come to be with us, it was always at a distance at a 12-week, was that in 12 weeks could we show the halt of disease and maybe even the regression. And we ended up with a few people actually being near disease-free or totally no evidence of disease in that window of time. And we're about to log another one right now. And I think she's going to be the fastest that we've ever had. Not metastatic. She was a 2B, but we had a metastatic patient at 98 days.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So basically showing signs of reversal of the cancer.
Yeah, because we can't, one of the things we can't control is time. Because people, like, one of the things we learned is that when they came and spent 21 days with us, re-entry home was really difficult because it was the environment that they'd gotten sick in, and then they'd been pulled out into this sort of massive but loving disruption. It wasn't violent, it was very gentle. They were well taken care of, very intimate. It was just, for those who don't know, there was only 5 people at a time. Kim and I would spend 21 days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the same property, and we focused on programming, but we also made sure we had adventure and walks on the beach, and we taught them how to make incredible food on top of the protocol. So we had chefs, and nobody did their laundry. Everything was done for you. It was like you didn't have to do anything. Literally, all you had to do was go to the bathroom and show up for the classes. That's all you had to do, and it was luxury. So that was one kind of environment. And then the other, the 12-week was more uphill, and it took longer to get a result, as far as we didn't see any like super fast 1 month big remarkable turnarounds, but we saw longer duration and then more of an ability to hold that. So I think that they say it takes 3 weeks to develop certain habits, and I think most psychologists would disagree and say that it depends on what you're facing as to what you have to do. And just, I should have mentioned, is that we did not, part of our study framework was not to get into trauma release. We did not want to do any kind of desensitization, EFT tapping, or any kind of projection of icons or characters in your life like that. We didn't do anything around that. What we did do around psycho-oncology was helping people to understand how busy the mind can be, and to understand what stories we tell ourselves and where those stories came from. And they may have come from trauma or early childhood suffering, but we did not go into any ways to manage trauma other than to understand it happened, and that you may have received some gifts because of it, and then to try to re-signify and then redefine how that event affects you. But we did not get into trauma release. And so that's why I think that, there's so many things when you're trying to do a study that you have to take into consideration. But we put everybody on the same diet, same limited supplement strategies, nobody was allowed to do poison. We didn't do any kinds of mistletoe. We didn't do any kinds of low dose chemo or any of those things. Our study was specifically a focus on diet and lifestyle, with a heavy emphasis on lifestyle, not just diet, because obviously diet is a cornerstone.
That's awesome. The retreat, I'm thinking it's just sparking an idea now about why maybe like I healed so quickly in 10 weeks. Probably because I wasn't really living real life. I was still in college, and then I had moved home. I had taken a medical leave of absence, and everyone was taking care of me. That essentially I just had to show up as well. But for someone who has to keep working or raise a family or something, that would not necessarily be the case.
Would you say that it was, I don't want to say easy, but it was manageable for you to be able to put confidence and trust when you arrived at CHPSA, feeling like you were in the right place, and you were feeling like it was a right thing for you to be doing at the right time? Yeah,
I did. I felt that was my best option at the time.
Yeah. And I think that that's important. Not that I was a promotion for the new CHPSA or anybody else, but I think it's one of the things that we have to realize, that faith is
big.
I think, huge. I think that some people equate faith and just to believing in the positive or something. It's like, no, it's actually having a confidence in something, a reasonable expectation, because there's already been evidence of it before. And so I think that when it's not working for us at a clinic or any place else, is that we don't then say it doesn't work or it's not going to work for me. We just have to recognize that you're an individual and there may need to be some individualization for you. And this may also just be the first chapter in an amazing story that is your life, in which your cancer journey may have more twists and turns than most. Just be okay with that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Candace had a question about ascites, the science of it. What does it mean in terms of, does it mean the cancer is advancing?
Yeah, thank you. So I think it depends on the type of cancer you're talking about. We see ascites a lot when the lymph is involved, right? So if you've got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and you've got a lot of nodular involvement, especially in the peritoneum, then you're going to see a lot of ascites. Or if your liver is really, really swollen. So ascites is there to protect us, but unfortunately it becomes its own sort of suffering, a disease of itself almost, because the ascites can cause tremendous problem. Whether you end up with odd lymphodemas if you sit too long, or if you lay on one way or another, and you get this kind of lymphedema swelling up on just one body part. But in general, the ascites is typically going to be located at a specific spot. It's the body's way of trying to protect. If you go back to Ryan Lolf, God works in the most mysterious ways. I still don't understand that one. I feel like I'm the worst evangelist on the planet if I was to be judged on that character, because I think when he got to me in August 18th of 2017 as full-blown recurrence, and like they'd called for hospice, we took 9 liters in 1 week off of his abdomen of ascites. 9 liters. I mean, it's mind-blowing to think that somebody's belly could hold that much. But I think, in that situation, the disease was raging, and that was the way it was protected. But within just like 2 weeks, it started to subside. We took an approach, to help move some of that liquid out by looking at, magnesium is a great way to draw any kinds of fluid that we have, excess fluid, into the bowels and to go get rid of it. So you can take it a little bit orally. You're going to get diarrhea, or you're going to get loose bowels probably. And so I'm just reading the notes. In this instance, CA-125 increasing ascites has been ongoing. Yeah, so, Candace, I would definitely say when there's reproductive cancer, I really want to sit with the person and push on the envelope a little bit around their perception of themselves and guilt and sex and being violated or not being violated, making a bad decision that goes against moral character or fiber, or being judged or something along those lines, or a partner that that you may have had along the way, that what's the role of HPV and these other things in it. Because if we do look at that then we can soothe the emotional part, which is usually out of sight and out of, we can't hear it until we calm down. So if we were to sit and pray, that's one thing. If we were to sit and be still, right, and just to wait upon the Lord and just to ask, what stories am I telling myself, or what's coming up? There's just these things that rage in our head, and there are all kinds of things. And a lot of times they're very critical and self-judgmental. And I'd encourage that to get a chance to sort of come up and take inventory, and then ask where those coming from. But also like HPV or with herpes, but especially HPV, I would jump on Novirin, Novirin, and that's available at www.no-viren, which is .com, which is a herbal supplement of like 5 botanicals. And it shows in medical literature to clear HPV. It's the only thing that's ever cleared HPV from the human body. And maybe that isn't something that you're worried about, or that your results didn't come back that way. But it also works with herpes. And that includes Epstein-Barr and cytomegalovirus, diseases which may not have been communicable through epidemiology, but rather were communicable through vaccination programs and things like that. So I would really be looking there. I'd be looking at how my attitude is around, as a woman, you're women bring life into this world through a most amazing way. And how do we feel about that? And what's our history? Were we forced to go somewhere, with a termination of a life that we didn't want to, or did we lose a child to suicide or addiction or something like that? Where are we? Do we feel that sex has been a very unpleasant and not good thing for us as a human being, or socially, or in our marriage and things like that? Let me read real fast. There's quite a bit of anxiety, type A, trust issues. Yep, trying to encourage a therapist, life coach, does acupuncture. Yeah, for sure. And if I would definitely look at the antivirals. You could also, if a doctor's willing, prescribe Zovirax, which is a herpes drug. Very, very few side effects to be worried about, and that might just help to suppress a virus. Again, sometimes we're shooting in the dark because we have very little time. And when somebody starts to have climbing CA-125 and ascites, they're losing the battle. But why are they? What part of that is? Where's the loss of ground covered? And it's usually, if we just keep pushing forward on kind of 4 categories, are we putting everything in the body and on the body that fights cancer? Are we learning to sit still and take inventory, to breathe, so nurture, breathe? Then love and support, human connection. And the 4th is believe in ourselves and our body's ability and our worthiness, believe in our team members, believe in that our treatment decisions, believe the cancer is temporary, and believe that this is part of something much bigger. If we press those 4 corners, we eventually get something to kind of erupt like a bit of a volcano, and we kind of get to nail into it. Wow. That's a lot, Candace, for her to be through. Very interesting. We've seen a few cases of COVID leading to advanced cancer and lung out of nowhere, but I'm not familiar with ovarian. And it sounds like, again, that I'm just going to go on a limb, is look for signs of self-loathing or like disappointment with the self. What's the name of the herbal supplement? Novarin. It's Novirin, and it's available and these guys are terrible. You have to stay on them. Let them know it's super important and timely. I tried to buy them. I offered to buy them just because I was so tired of putting in orders in and going weeks without getting product and not getting an answer back. So I don't know what's going on, but others have tried to recreate the product as well. And in the research, they did not get the same result that they got. Researchers tried to go out and just formulate it themselves. I don't know if they were frustrated too. I have no idea, but there's good literature on that. So you can actually look up Novarin or Gene Eden, I think, Gene Eden is the other. When you go to the website, you'll see there's both of them there. We choose Novarin. Both of them have papers on them that were pretty impressive, but I prefer the Novarin for no real reason. I think the papers were a little bit better. Cool. This many years in, so this is our, the end. We're 8 years. I still believe that the majority of cancers can be healed. It's the way that we pose it is: do you or your team feel that you have 8 to 10 weeks to implement all the evidence-based natural remedies that we could do? We're not looking to do everything. We're looking to do some very specific things. And if you do, we'd be glad to join the team. Or the opposite side is someone's already done conventional. They're now treatment resistant and they don't really have any options. So they're just palliative. I like those because those are, from an ethics perspective, we can do all the stuff that we want to do and get in there, because what else do we have? No one else has a roadmap for anything for them to be able to do. Sheena, that's such a great question. My current position until something points differently is, if they don't have the will, it just doesn't matter how bad we want it. They're tired and they're beat up. They've been in pain, and sometimes it's not a physical pain, sometimes it's an emotional pain. They've been alone, or they felt like they've been alone, and a lot of people come to us secretly hoping to find a way to finish the chapter without pain and suffering. I don't even know if they know when they come to us that they're saying that or thinking that. But I think that their actions, what I've seen looking at the difficult cases was, and even those we had some improvements in, but nothing that was sustainable unless you could, walk around with them the entire time. We did have a couple of 21-day stays that it was remarkable, considering you could tell that they, very limited. But if you do expose the body to amazing nutrition, to relaxation, and to unconditional love, and you do have the ability to be confident about a very positive future, even if it's only for a few days, there'll be a pretty big change. So I'm reading the pancreatic one. So I have 2 pancreatic patients right now. One I'm just now onboarding, and another one I've been dealing with. I had 2 previous, all stage 4. So all 4 of these individuals, the first 2 had metastatic disease to liver. One of these does not, one of my new ones does not, that's not where the metastatic disease is. The 3 of them had heavy tumor burden in the head of the pancreas. This one I'm onboarding now does not. So that's where it's a little bit more difficult. What we had in common with all those was low dose chemotherapy in conjunction with all the things that we already know. A lot of love and a lot of trying to help them to put some words to some of their feelings and experiences, and then letting that tumor burden shrink enough so that they could qualify for a Whipple procedure, a surgical procedure to fold the pancreas over. And so those 2, the 2 females, they're both alive, and that was, one's at 7 years, one's at 6 years. And so both of them were considered to be no chance, no hope. One of them we used botanicals in, one we did not. I like the botanicals that we used, which were like astragalus and some other derivatives from some flowers and things. There's a whole world out there around helping with emotional release and things like that, using botanicals and maybe physical experiences. I don't know. But basically, no, I don't know. The labs are pretty much circulating tumor cell counts and scans, unfortunately. So I can do to keep watch on mine and my twins' health, pancreatic function. Oh, as far as general pancreatic function, yeah. So you always want to look at like your AST, ALT, and alkaline phosphatase. So AST, ALT, alkaline phosphatase. Those are generally going to give you a good idea. Had Whipple surgery, but no real nutrition. Yeah, wow. I agree, Candace. It is my mom. My mom was actually far more committed and advanced to natural treatments than I ever was. I was in med school while she was going through cancer, having a first-time reaction to chemo that almost killed her. And so she stitched together her own plan back in 1990, and she managed to do 13 years, which was fantastic. But she gets the credit because I was very much mainstream at the time. But as far as the ongoing labs for pancreatic, health and stuff like that, it's just, you look for how well you're digesting. Do you have any discomfort or pain? Body weight really matters in pancreatic cancer. We don't want to be too heavy. We definitely don't want to get too terribly thin, only because of durability. But we want to try to be able to understand how well are we digesting? What does our poop look like in the toilet? Based on our diet. If it's floating, there's too much fats in it. If it's sinking to the bottom and it shouldn't be, things like that, so that we can. Those are just kind of rudimentary ways. But you can also do stool every 6 months. You can do a Genova GI effects. There's a doctor's data one too, but Genova Laboratories has a GI effects comprehensive, and you can look to see what's happening in your digestion. And if your digestion is falling apart, that's a sign that your pancreas is falling apart, if that makes any sense. Twin not digesting things well, no gallbladder, I'm concerned, no money for small intestine scope. Yeah, that sounds good. Like Candace, like a pretty there's some complexities to that, which I usually get fired up on. If I had any bandwidth, I'd be volunteering to jump in. And unfortunately, I just don't have bandwidth. I've got to figure out how to get more hours than I have days or appointments. But you know, um, their acupuncture and Chinese medicine has a lot to offer in liver, pancreas, and gallbladder function. And I definitely would encourage you to stay tied into that if you can. Find somebody amazing, and if you can't, keep looking until you find somebody that you'll know when you find them. Yeah, you're welcome, Candace.
I have a question, Theo. How often do you use like CTC or like cell-free DNA tests to monitor, and which
Yeah.
ones have you found most helpful?
Well, it's been tough because the ctDNA science is exciting, and I think there's so much that I want to we want to see that frontier go. But it kind of feels like cell search is the most affordable, reliable, consistent across all cancer types. They're only FDA released for 4, but in talking with their medical director and stuff, it shows for all 300 lines of cancer, you're always going to have circulating tumor cells. So I like it whenever possible, which has been very rare, is to get those markers as soon as we can early on so we know how many CTCs, circulating tumor cells, and if there are any CA markers and a CEA. Most cancers emit a CEA at the very least, but again, not the best marker in the whole world because it doesn't tell us a whole lot. But like in breast cancer, getting a CA 125 and a 19.9 makes a ton of sense to do in addition to the 15.3 and the 27.29, because they're just dots that tell us a picture, but they give us a much fuller picture. And then do that again as you're into an intervention. And if your intervention is working, you'll kind of know because those numbers are going down. Many people can tell their tumor burden because they can palpitate it or feel it. And so if you can feel that it's reducing, the micro environment around the tumor is softening, things like that, those are all super useful. And again, ultrasound is not a horrible system for generally trying to keep track on something while you're shrinking. So the frequency goes to how often are you in a sprint with your protocol, and then you want to be able to retest it. So for me, it's 8 weeks at a minimum. But if you're feeling at all like something's not right, or you're not making headway, then test earlier. But then once the body starts to heal, you can open that timeline up a little bit. When you can see that it's healing, you know that it's healing. You're able to see it either on an ultrasound or you're seeing it in all of those labs. The CA markers are pretty affordable. I think, at walk-in labs, the women's 2729, 125, alpha, there's an alpha one, and then there's, or it was a 15.3, 19.9 is $235, and then a 27.29 is another $35. So, usually for around $400, you can go request them yourself and get those labs. New York and a couple other states have some limitations around walk-in labs. I don't know why, but they do. So go on vacation across the border and the next state and get them done or whatever.
That's a great idea. I never thought of that, going on vacation to, and in your blood work then. The GIFX was not available in New York, but it is now. They got rid of the CDSA 2.0. So
yeah, I like that one a lot, but not for retesting all the time. What I'm trying to understand is, especially if someone's been on protocol for 3 or 4 weeks, and we test them and they have deficiencies, well, they've had enough nutrition intake that now we know really where they're not synthesizing, and then we can cross-reference that against which types of bacteria help to synthesize those elements, and then that gives us an idea for a targeted probiotic strategy. Again, those are all sophisticated things that I almost never get to play with because you master the fundamentals and disease starts to go away. It's really super strange, it's just crazy.
You said probiotics for specific bacteria. My mind went to foods, but probably like all of them to some degree, feed the beneficial bacteria.
Yeah, because it's probiotics and prebiotics. It's the whole package, and it's the colors of the rainbow. It's the terpenes, the flavones, the flavonoids, the chalcones, the salvones, all these other phyto compounds that we don't even like. We're thinking vitamin A through mineral Z, for zinc, but we're not like. There's all this other medicine that's in these plants, allium and limonene, and these things are just like that are just super potent in helping the body to do its job. And so for me, it always goes back to just keeping the free resource that we always have. And it's funny, it's had a renewed visit to vitaprotocol.com. It's like there's 4 videos that come to you kind of auto delivered. Everything always lands in your junk box. I don't know why. I try to whitelist it. I can't change it. It's been that way for years. But that stuff's all free. But look at that recipe and those 28 ingredients. It's a lot different than some people's protocols where they're eating 6 or 7 or 8 different fruits and vegetables pretty consistently. It's like, yeah, no, but what if we opened it up to actually look at all 34 essential nutrients? And what if we looked at it from that lens of terpenes and flavones and flavonoids and these nutrients, anti-nutrients? I mean, it gets to be super exciting. And the other thing that we've definitely seen is to be very careful with supplementation when you have active cancer, with the idea of overusing antioxidant strategies. When they come in pill form, there seems to be a significant associated risk with metastases. So taking supplements may not be our magic pills. We may have to just do the work, which is to eat like we love ourselves and to eat from the garden instead of taking that bottle. Do I have any experience with wormwood? Only a little bit. We used it when I did a lot of work with Dr. Sunil Pai. That was one that he would prescribe depending on what kind of overgrowth you had and what you were looking to do. There is, a lot of new work when you look at ivermectin and others as having antiparasitics that exert a anti-cancerous effect, and it's not because of a parasite. It has to do with the chemical composition and what it's interrupting or suppressing. And it was some pretty good data. We have a couple of patients right now that have elected to be on ivermectin. I think that one was a really good example. Unfortunately, he passed, which was the one that passed away not from his cancer. So we stopped a very advanced stage 4 esophageal cancer. We got it to pause. So every month what the scan results would come back is subtle changes on a very fast growing case where they were like, you're not going to be here in 6 months. You won't be alive. There's no way. And 17 months later, he was still very much alive and his cancer hadn't progressed anything very significant. It was very subtle. So I think that there's room for it. But artemisinin and wormwood and these other things are very popular. The literature is favorable on them. It wasn't our on-ramp. We've never been looking for everything you could do. What we've actually been doing is the opposite, is looking for the minimum viable protocol. What's the minimum thing that everybody has to do, not could do, that would bring us the result? Like, what are the common denominators that we can, be a little bit more scientific about? And so everyone's an individual. And if you're feeling drawn to something, honor your intuition. And remember, the intuition oftentimes is just the Holy Spirit whispering at us. And the Holy Spirit doesn't scream, at least it doesn't for me. So don't get quiet, and maybe I hear the Holy Spirit nudge you towards something. And I think something can be good for you for a while, and then you might then one day wake up and go, I don't think I'm supposed to take it anymore. And that can very much be true.
Anything else that you want to share, Theo?
Hope. I mean, I wish I knew how to sell hope. And I don't mean by sell hope, I mean just to share hope. I don't really know how to do, because I'm such a pessimist and I'm such a conservative around a precisionist. I just have all these demands and things. And so I just think that the takeaway is that for those of us who have faith is that we serve a loving and magnificent creator who has the potential to move the hearts and minds of kings and to bring things in. And the gentleman who just passed away, I promise you, if there's ever been a case in which God was going to bring somebody home, no matter what we did, that was the case, because everything, an undiagnosed significant peptic ulcer that was bleeding, it was significant, and it was misdiagnosed as esophageal cancer bleeding. And so just weird things, like all these things we'd rescue him from, but the Lord had a different plan, and just reminds me that he's very much involved in both the success and the timing to come home. So accept it. It's beautiful. Life is life and death is death, and cancer doesn't necessarily have to be a death sentence, as Ty would say. But I just think that a lot of times it's there's just stories that get built around the C word that just don't need to be. It's just another disease. It's just another tap on the shoulder. It's another wake up call to go to unpack some things and change the way we live our life.
Thanks for sharing that, Theo. And I can identify with being struggling with the more hopeful side of things, being very, not taking the time to recognize the positive, but kind of maybe a short recognition, but then going into the questioning or criticisms, constructive, but still.
I think that we can surrender to a situation without surrendering to a force, meaning I don't have to give up, but I can recognize no matter how much I don't want it to be hot today, it's going to be really hot, or if I've got to do something difficult, did I go do something difficult? Did I recognize it and I'm okay with it? And I describe it like this a lot of times, is if you're on a motorcycle or a bicycle and you see a rock in the road that's not supposed to be there, and you're like, man, I hope I don't hit that. If I hit that, I'm going to crash. Well, the best thing you can do is take your eyes off of the rock and put it back onto where you're going. Where do I really want to go? And then you'll miss the rock, strangely enough. But if you keep focusing on how important it is to not hit the rock, I've got to cure cancer, I've got to solve this, I can't not do this, then we end up smashing right into that rock in the weirdest of ways, like a magnet, and it just gets really messy. And I think it's to be able to accept that there's a rock in the road, right? There's an opportunity to, like a mirror, to face our mortality and these other things. But if we take that deep breath and we start looking around and say, where's my life not in its best form, or where are areas that would be even better if, or how do I feel about, and I think a lot of times we see disease when we get older, we're starting to think. It's not about our body breaking down. It's that we're beginning to focus a lot of energy on, hurts and unmet needs and unresolved issues with people we care about, or people that we care about who aren't caring for us the way we feel like we should, or we've cared for people and now they're grown up and they've left the home, and now who are you? It's like, well, I was mom for 20 years or 30 years, and now I'm not. Now I'm married to some jerk, and I don't even know what we do. I don't even know what we're about, and I don't really like hanging out with them. Or maybe you do, but it's who are you? It's like, well, I've been a thing. I've been a brand for 3 decades. But who are you? What are the things that delight you and that you spend time on, and that are reflective of the gifts that you have to bring to tribe or community? Or are you just a servant or a slave? Is it been out of balance? So, yeah.
Thank you. Desha, real quick, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's such an honor to meet you via the video meeting. I've heard so much about you, good things, amazing things, and I just wanted to say you have so much wisdom, and I really appreciate what you were saying about the person having to want it more. Because where I work, I really don't have people coming to me. I'm usually going to them, trying to offer nutrition for cancer and just talk to them about that. And usually 9 times out of 10, I get rejected, or just people aren't interested, and it can get discouraging. But I just wondered, sometimes I feel like, is there a different way I could present it, or maybe I'm doing something that's not I just don't know. But maybe it's just like you said, it's just a matter of the person wanting it themselves, or having that moment of, what else could I do, or what could I, be interested before I even come in the room.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just wondered if you had any maybe a suggestion on maybe a lead-in or maybe something I could open up with that may be more apt to get a positive response.
And
Or
is
just
this
anything.
is this a clinical setting, like where you're in a doctor's office, or is this?
Yes, it's a conventional outpatient cancer clinic where patients are coming in for their chemo and radiation treatment. So I'm kind of, in a setting that's not very encouraging for that. So it's already hard to begin with. But, I try to do what I can to just to get people to at least look at their eating and what they're doing. And but I just feel like I'm not being very successful at getting more people to be interested or just to even consider it.
Welcome to America. It turns out that most people, our entire medical system is almost based on the fact that people don't want to take responsibility or actions to change their lives. And almost everybody knows that the risk of developing disease is significantly higher for those who don't eat well, but yet somehow it doesn't always translate. So I think you are in a kind of an interesting space where I think that you have the expectation is adjust the expectation is you're there to serve wonderfully the person who's ready for you, and the people who aren't ready for you, you're just planting seeds. And so it's okay if it's a no for now. You planted a seed that'll take root and that'll grow hopefully in them, but it's about them and not about you. And so instead is really just to be your most happy, energetic, and fulfilled self for when the person that is ready can listen. And then I have a strong position is that when we are going to do poison, let the poison be poisonous, do our best to eat from the common sense side of the menu, stay away from any kinds of fast foods, but gosh darn it, sometimes treatment's really rough and hard to endure. So there are some foods we can eat and things we can do that help to minimize some side effects. But I've always held the position that I don't want people to associate the if they're on a carboplatinum chemo, so I don't want them to have that metallic taste and associate it with good for you food or throwing up and associate that with good for you food. I'd rather just them, when they finish up treatment. So in the discussion too, it might be just even like, hi, here's my role in your oncology support team, and that is I can help you make some food choices that will minimize some of the side effects of treatment, maybe help lighten those. And then more importantly, if you want to stave off recurrence, we could talk about ways to make some shifts that would appear to help radically reduce your chance of having to go through this a second time. And you can definitely affect those that are around you to help them prevent having to come hang out with us at a great facility like this, right? Because we're always trying to build them up and let them know that they're making a good decision and that we care about them and that we have their back. But I think your expectation is just shifting it. It's just saying, you're really there. You're blessed is that you get to serve the person that's ready really well, and they're going to tell you how ready they are. And it's probably going to be 1 in 15 or 1 in 20 or some other weird number that you'll sit with. But they're going to come to your door and they're going to be super glad they met you, because you're going to be the difference between whether or not they have a recurrence or not. You may have a big role in that. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, that's great. Great advice.
Good.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you're doing. And I know it's hard to work in an environment where, everybody's snickers and sneers, but, I'm pretty good at fighting with oncologists about their big gaps and them understanding they don't know everything and that they just slow down. We could all work together. I'm glad that you're working in an environment you don't have to have that contention. And so I think it's just such a blessing that you even get to exist. What a great, the people who come through there for treatment are receiving a blessing far greater than most, because they get to see you.
Thank you. That's very kind and encouraging. Appreciate
keep
that.
Going. Keep doing it.
Well, thanks so much, Theo, for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today, and for coming on a Tuesday at your worst time. And thank you, ladies, for coming and sharing your questions and helping to create an engaging conversation. Theo, is there anything that we can do for you or pray about for you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just pray that God's will reigns as we go forward on help in the things that I work on in my brain. One of them is I don't have any resistance in my 12-week program at this point because of the results we've gotten, and it's a relatively high ticket cost for people compared to some other options. I don't think it's that much really, and I don't mind telling people. So if I work with somebody for 12 weeks, it's $6,000. And I don't have any pushback there, but the only problem I have is just one of me. And so then it just gets to be, there's only so many cases I could work on and just emotionally not fall apart because you bond with them, you're journeying with them. And so it's been on my heart to move that to a 6-month app-based environment where I could kind of do a little bit more of a weekly group one-on-one answering, do like a Q&A, and then bring in a naturopath or some other, maybe a functional or somebody, but probably a naturopath to be able to do an intake and to do an assessment, do some prescription around some of the things, and to be able to offer that like sub $1,000 for 6 months or something, some version of that we've been working on. So that could be not infinitely scalable, but significantly more scalable than what we are now, because I've just gotten to a point where I'm turning 53. For those who don't know, I went back.
Theo.
I feel like it. I've got seven grandchildren. We lost our life savings and we're rebuilding, and God has blessed us. And just for those to know, is like it is. So I run operations now for a development company, and I have total flexibility to work with all my patients anytime I want to. My partner is a believer who is a cowboy door kicker who is just finding humility in the Lord and all that he does. But we're building 550 homes here in the Valley as developers. So we're breaking ground, and over the next year and a half, we'll build those out and then some. And we have our own farm to table project that Kim and I have that we've been just nursing along. The Lord has, never taken from us yet. So we just keep assuming that it's a go. But that's going to be like a 70 home development in 840 acres where everybody has like 10 acres and a real ranch and a farm to table and things like that. So the Lord has been super restorative. But I also at 53, it hurts my soul to work with more than 4 or 5 people at a time. I just care, and there's some point of it where I don't want to journey this intimately with anything more than that, and I want to be able to pass the torch and share with others. So yeah, if you just pray that God would have his hand in whatever it is. I don't have a name for it. The app's done. I'm just writing program and content right now. I'm just writing what happens on day 36 versus day 41 and things like that, and I'm pretty happy about it. But it's a cool app, and it's white labeled, and it's already somebody else's hard work that I don't have to keep trying to spend all this money on. So yeah, if you could pray for that, that'd be spectacular.
Absolutely. Do you have a doctor in mind, or are you looking for a naturopathic doctor?
I'm open. What I'm looking for is somebody who's really super heart-centered, a believer, intuitive. They just kind of, it feels like the Holy Spirit ministers to them on a regular basis, where they're just they can be with somebody and just sort of like know how to serve them. And then, and maybe know some other people like that too, so that we can expand that around. And I kind of have an idea of the economics for them. And so they would just revenue share based on the number of patients they participate with. And I think it's not lucrative, but it's way better than what most of them are earning right now. And so I feel like it would be, it could be, and it's just, you just sort of know when I met Dr. Wagner a couple of days ago. She's not a naturopath, she's an MD, and she's so far ahead in nutrigenomics and everything else that we had assessed a patient identically. And she doesn't have any background in the psycho-oncology side or anything else, but she does in reading gene expressions. And she was saying these genes are this way because of these types of life experiences and holdings. And I was like, well, she's got a disease. We were saying the exact same thing, but you triangulate it and you're like, okay, great. This is a new advisor on the team that can help advise. And then you meet other people and you just think, great, they might be a really good, somebody to provide services for, people in the process.
Awesome. Praise God. Well, can I approach the throne for you?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Dear gracious Lord, thank you so much, God, for meeting us where we are and for having compassion and mercy, Lord, on us all. We all need that, and so grateful for it. Thank you so much, Lord, for Theo, for the gifts that you've given to him, the heart you've given him, and the way he has responded to your promptings and your calling on his life to serve people in the cancer community, Lord, and to guide them into restored health in every way, Lord, in their nutrition, in their mind, in their environment, in their soul, Lord. I pray you continue to bless the work of his hands, Lord, that all that he does would have success. I pray you continue to bring people to him who he can and he will help, and that they will share their stories, Lord, so that others can hear about it and find their own healing as well. I pray for this new project that Theo is working on, all the projects that he's working on with Kim, the farm to table process, and this development with homes and lots of land. Lord, I pray you bless that, bring all the right people into their space for that, and also for this program that he can reach more people who have cancer with him and a naturopathic doctor for one-on-one calls, Lord. Just pray that you make the way for him, pave the way, Lord. And thank you that you promise to reveal your will to us as we seek you. So I thank you for the many gifts and fruit that will come from that project. And I thank you so much again for this time. Pray you bless everyone on this call and those who aren't here, Lord. I pray that they would, as Theo says, feel seen, heard, and loved. And I thank you for this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. And again, thank you for the invite to be with you guys. They've definitely missed the group. It was so fun to be able to do that for a long time. And then when I couldn't, it felt like I had like that deep sense of missing out.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but it's possible we can move it back to Fridays. We just have to be earlier. So
yeah, I have no idea what's a good time anymore. They can just do it, right? And everybody just comes and they feed and they strengthen, and then sometimes they go and do their thing and then they come back. So much love to everybody that's not on the call, that has been on the calls before too, and the speaker lineup has been beautiful. Just seeing different survivors, thrivers talking about their particular stories is just super awesome. So good job on that.
Well, praise God. I'm very, very glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing.
You got it. All right, guys. Well, with that, if anybody has any questions, you can always email me. All right.
Thanks, Theo. Thanks,
All
ladies.
right.
Have a great day. God bless.
Thank you, Theo. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Great to see you or hear you, Mike.
Likewise. Take care.
Bye, Maricel. Bye, Sheena.